I effing hate taxes. I'm pretty sure all of you guys do as well, at least those who end up filing for them. As it's been discussed on both sides of the political parties, it's simply not fair. The tax code is way too complex. You have to pay someone to either do that tax service for you, or you have to pay for a service to do it. The tax write-offs, and we'll go into this in a little bit, are only for a select few, i.e. mostly the rich, wealthy, and those who have lots of means, and everything is taxed over and over and over again. If you have a business, it's high up taxed. The take-home money is taxed, and then everything you buy or have previously bought seems to continue to be taxed over and over. Frankly, this is bullshit. So, yeah. Please like and subscribe. Goal is to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you could please help out with that, that would be greatly appreciated. The government is constantly running in the red, and I get that. We are constantly running in the red and having problems with quote-unquote balancing our budget, which is, again, another issue. But I don't see why we can't change our tax code to make it a bit more us-friendly. There have been proposals such as the Fair Tax Plan that have come forth. It suggests that to take away all of the income tax, so you take home everything that you make minus the taxes and other deductions. You pay taxes based on only what you buy. It's $23 for every $100 spent, or about 30% total. The tax is built onto the sticker cost, so if you see it for $1, then that you had 23 cents on that $1 purchase, but you pay what the sticker says. There are a lot more rules associated with the Fair Tax Plan. Nothing near compared to our current tax code, but it is an interesting idea, and if you like listening to audiobooks, they do have an audiobook that could be found on Audible for and it's less than 5 hours long, and it's worth a listen to. Personally, I don't believe it has a chance in hell of passing because it was mostly smeared and built upon very right-winged personalities such as Neil Bortz. So I can remember in Pirates of the Caribbean when the Admiral or whomever Norrington was asked by his little Dumb and Dumber kind of why they weren't doing what Captain Jack Sparrow wanted them to do. And his reply was, it was because Captain Jack Sparrow suggested it. Yeah, so I don't think this plan has any chance in hell of passing. I don't believe any tax plan that's made out by the far left or right really has a good chance of passing and actually being liked overall by the Americans as a whole. But with that said, our current tax bracket for 2023 has kind of three main categories. If you're filing singly, if you're filing jointly, or if you're the head of household. Most people will fall under the single or married filing jointly. And the tax bracket rates are 10%, 12%, 22%, 24%, 32%, 35%, 37%. Now, let's say someone makes $100,000 as a single individual. Remember, this is done as his first $11,000 are taxed at 10%. Everything between $11,001 to $44,725 is taxed at the 12%. Everything he makes from $44,726 to $95,375 is taxed at the 22%, and his remaining like 4,000, what is that, 600 something is taxed at that 24%. So it kind of steps up on that bracket scale. So then you can kind of see on the table here where you would follow and all that loveliness. But there's something called standardized deductions. So when you're filing your taxes, you get an automatic standardized deduction. This also went up this past year. So if you're single, the standardized deduction is $13,850. If you're married filing jointly, it's $27,700. So if you're trying to write off deductions on your taxes and they do not equal more than what the standardized deduction is, those deductions don't help you at all. So most families will not get anywhere close to getting $25,000 to $27,000 of deductions especially if their household income is only between like $50 to $100,000. It's hard to have that many deductions for it to actually be considered more of a tax break for them. Now, the deduction is a tax break in that, let's say, again, we'll use the same example as before. The person's making $100,000, single individual, they get again, it's $13,850. So what does that actually look like? So you take the $100,000, you minus 18,000. Oh, no. So you take the $100,000, you minus what their deduction is, which is $13,850, which that makes that $86,150. So that kind of puts them in the 22% bracket and below. So they're no longer taxed any bit in the 24%, and he's taxed as if he's making $86,150. So it is nice, but it doesn't save you as much as what you would think. It decreases their tax exposure by $13,850 at the highest brackets at which they would have been exposed. So when people talk about you can write that off on your taxes or whatever, it really doesn't help the little guy all that much. Now, if you have a business, if you have multiple homes, if you have pretty much a lot of income that you're doing a lot of various projects with, you can potentially benefit from that, especially if you have any big projects that are getting done that are considered tax writable. So it's like improving your HVAC systems or other things to your homes that if it costs enough, you can probably get close to it. But for the most part, and for a year-on-year basis, the standardized deduction will be what most people will end up having to use. I also want to point out that the median household income for 2023 is $74,580. And poverty guidelines for pretty much now for a household of 8 is anything $50,060 and below. If you're a household of 4, they use the poverty line as about $30,000. Any household greater than 8, which is greatly decreasing, you add an additional $5,140 for each additional person to that. Corporate taxes have ranged a hell of a lot. From 1942, it was at a high of 53%. And then 1993, 38%. With Trump's laws, it went down to like 21%. And then it looks like I think it's going up to 28%. I'm not 100% sure there. You can look that up. But again, you have to remember that it's that percent, but it's not locked in, and there's lots of tax breaks, lots of loopholes, and lots of ways that you can have profitable companies that end up not paying any taxes whatsoever, which is kind of rubbish. So even though that's the maximum rate, how much we're actually getting from the corporations, it's kind of a little bit more of a gray area. So unless you've lived under a rock, I don't really need to go further in depth as to how our tax system has been a shit show. We can at least kind of converse as to what things we can do and or change to hopefully make our tax system a bit more beneficial, easy, and a bit less corrupt overall. One, and I know a lot of people will scoff at this, but I think our tax code needs to be kept under 5 pages. I don't care if it's small font, single space, double space, whatever, but it needs to be a hell of a lot more simpler. There needs to be no more deductions. I don't care. None for businesses, none for individuals, no exceptions, no more loopholes, no more bullshit, no more of this crap. Individual income tax. I think this should be changed. I think there needs to be no federal income tax for income from $0 to $55,935. This is 75% of the median household income and far above the typical poverty level. This value is to be readjusted pending any change to the median household income. Everything above this amount is automatically taxed at 20%. Doesn't matter if they make $60,000 or $100 million. Anything from that $55,935 up to whatever amount that the household takes home is taxed at 20%. Doesn't matter if they're single, doesn't matter if they're married, doesn't matter if they're head of household, doesn't matter if they have 20 kids, it's all taxed at the same rate. Everybody makes choices, they have to deal with it. It needs to be the same regardless of person. Our tax code should not favor one person or lifestyle over another just because typically of religious ideologies, but we need to stop favoring one person or people over another regardless of what it is. In addition, there is a 5% sales tax that will be added to all purchases, no exceptions, including groceries, batteries, shoes, medicine, houses, land, yachts, etc. There'll be a 5% sales tax added to everything. But with that, and this is kind of like a little caveat now I would ideally want to add in because it's a little pet peeve of mine. I would say no more yearly property tax. It is taxed when we buy it, but if it's continued to tax, we really don't own whatever we bought in the first place. We're just kind of leasing it out from the government. So I would say no more property tax, kind of BS there. Corporate tax, surprise, surprise, this is going to be very simple as well. Just flat out 20%, no more deductions, no more write-offs. If a company is profitable, it is paying 20% on that profits. Enough said. Currently, the dividend tax is actually pretty favorable. However, I would change this as well to simply no dividend tax for total amounts that is under 75% of the median household income. Otherwise, it is taxed at 20%. This means that if a family makes $55,935 via salary and another $55,935 in dividends, they don't pay any federal tax. Anything they make above this is taxed at the 20%, whether that's in dividend form or in salary form, but anything below that is taxed. This hopefully should help benefit and encourage those to invest and to save. It doesn't matter if they're 69 and a half or younger, any dividend income is non-taxed. No more multi-billion-dollar companies preying off our terrible tax code. And those that are unable to figure it out or do it themselves. No more IRS coming after you or threatening you. Cops maybe, but IRS, F them. You simply put in a website or program the government owns or made, probably hopefully had to outsource to make it be half competent, but you simply pretty much put in what you've made after you get your tax return forms back, and they simply tell you what you owe or what they will pay you back. There's no paying for this use. There's no need for professional help. The math is so effing easy. A 5th grader should have the competent skills enough to be able to double check what the returns are and what they should be. So this next part might be a bit controversial. Regardless if you owe money, you're not. Regardless if you worked or not, you must file your taxes yearly. I don't care who you are. Everybody has to file their taxes. I don't think, and this is again where it gets very controversial, I think you should not be allowed to vote if you don't at least file. That does not mean that you had to have made money or actually pay taxes, especially according to this plan. A lot of people will not have to pay taxes besides their sales tax. But they say it's the right to vote, but it also is your right to pay taxes. And you can't get one benefit without the other. I think they come synonymously. So, and I also don't feel like you should be continuing to drive or fly or doing a lot of the other things in the U.S. if you're not filing your taxes. Again, this does not mean you're actually having to pay taxes according to this plan. So don't get your pennies all up in a twist. You just have to file. You have to acknowledge what you are doing and breaking in. Now, I do believe there should be relatively severe penalties for those who are actively being fraudulent in this. Roughly probably a triple the expense of whatever taxes that they would have owed for that as a penalty, and then probably a 5-year penalty on top of that for corporations where instead of 20% it's probably 40%, and then for individual wise having to pay 15% for 5 years from that $0 to $55,000. But what am I overlooking? How can this tax code be hella better? What do you think would work yourself? Please tell me in the comments why this plan absolutely sucks, or what things might actually be half decent. What should I look at next? Healthcare maybe? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Thank you. Ciao.